This is Critical Commentary with Maurice Williams. Today we'll be discussing the NBA gambling scandal. I'll be reacting to Emily Saves America, and I'll be getting to some of you guys' comments at the end of the show, so stick around until the end. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes gonna talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about their 2 genders. I sat next to her hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch, baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog, she FaceTime, but I never call. Last week, a big story broke involving Chauncey Billups, a current NBA coach and a former player, Terry Rozier, a current player, and Damon Jones, a former player. So it is alleged that Chauncey Billups was involved in a gambling ring that involved the mafia. Yes, the Italian mafia. You heard that correctly. And Terry Rozier is alleged to have altered his play to affect gambling, and Damon Jones also gave information. And this is all tied to the Italian mafia. There's 4 families who were discussed. The ones that stick out to me, because I'm somewhat of a mafia buff, were the Genovese family and the Gambino family, and they are 2 of the biggest 5 New York Italian mafia families. So this goes all the way back to the 1930s when people used to talk about the mafia had power and they were killing people and knocking off congressmen and involved in illegal betting, running numbers, etc. So the allegation is that in the 2019 and 2020, Chauncey Billups and other people involved in the NBA and the Italian mafia were scamming people during poker games. They were using an elaborate scheme of having a technological electronics to look under the table and see which players had the best hand, and then they would give that information, that data, to the person who was running the table, and then based upon that, the person running the table would know who would win the poker game. And it said that Chauncey Billups was receiving $50,000, and other people involved in NBA were getting $50,000 for their role in this. It gets worse because Terry Rozier, a current player for the Miami Heat, but at the time he was playing for the Charlotte Hornets, it said that he was letting his friends and associates and a small group of people know that he may not be playing the full game, and this was information that the rest of the public didn't know. And when he let those people know that he wasn't going to play, they had inside information and were able to place wages, sometimes as high as $100,000, $260,000 on NBA games. Now this affected the product on the court for the NBA, because Terry Rozier was a starting point guard, and if he doesn't play, that's affecting his team. But also it's affecting millions of Americans, because so many of us, myself included, use things like FanDuel and Sportsbet, DraftKings, etc. So most Americans don't have this inside information, so we're betting based upon what we know from the public and what we see with our own eyes. But if a small group of people are getting this type of inside information, the odds of them winning are exponentially higher than ours. They're basically rigging the game. So in essence, they cost millions of people money by having information that the rest of the public didn't have. Some Damon Jones, who was not Terry Rozier, obviously, Damon Jones also, because he was a former player, had inside information as well. So it's alleged that some games when LeBron was injured, he knew about it way before the reports came out. It's also alleged that sometimes when Anthony Davis was injured, he knew days, not necessarily days, but hours before the reports came out. So because of this, he was able to tell his friends and other associates. There are about 33 people currently named in the conspiracy, but some people are saying it's the tip of the iceberg, so there may be more NBA players to come out. They were able to tell those 30 or so people the information that they had, and those people were placing bets. Now, in return for these bets, Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, and Damon Jones were receiving sometimes flat fees. Some of the flat fees were low. So for Chauncey Billups, he was receiving $50,000, but they're saying there were times where Damon Jones only received $5,000 for this information. So sometimes after giving the mafia or their friends, because it's not just their friends, the mafia was also involved, for giving them that information, they would get $5,000, or they could wait and receive a portion of the earnings that the person earned. Anybody who knows business knows a lot of times they probably waited until after the mafia or whoever they gave the information to place the bet, because you'll probably get more than $5,000 if you just wait. If you know that the player is not going to play in the game or a star player is not going to play, it's a 90% or almost 100% chance you'll win the bet. So they probably a lot of times, instead of taking the money up front, just waited and took a percentage after the bet went through. So again, the reason why this is a big story is, one, it involves the mafia. So people hadn't heard of the mafia in decades. It involves current players, current coaches, and big known players like LeBron James. And it's just highlighting the fact that gambling is a slippery slope. If it wouldn't have been the players who gave out this information, and we may find out that more players were involved, we may also find out that personnel for the teams are involved. So it's not just the players who know when people are hurt or what's going on inside the team's strategy. Coaches know, personnel know, staff know, etc. Even really journalists know, right? So when what we like about journalists is that they're able to leak information before the public knows, so we can get the news first and we can get the news accurate. Well, these same journalists potentially could be using this information to enrich themselves or enrich their friends and family. So I'm not hoping that we find out that journalists and other news reporters are involved, but it's just something that we have to take into consideration, just like we had to take into consideration with paying the college students. Well, are the college students going to go to class? How much money are the college students going to make? Are all the students going to treat each other fairly, or some are making more money than others? Now gambling is pretty much a part of American life, and we probably won't get rid of sports betting, but the NBA is going to have to take a hard stance. So those who may not have been following the history of gambling in the NBA, last year a player was caught to be gambling and he was banned from the NBA. Now, Chauncey Billups is a Hall of Fame player and coach, so he may get the same treatment as Pete Rose, who betted on baseball and who was banned for life. So I'll be keeping you guys up to date on the new information in this case, and let you guys know what's the punishment for Terry Rozier, who is he hasn't been convicted. They have not. These are all allegations, though they seem highly likely. They're all allegations, and the feds are involved. So a lot of times when the feds are involved, they compile a lot of information, and I think the rate that they close cases that they win is like 90%. But for the current time being, Terry Rozier is on leave, and so is Chauncey Billups. The NBA caught one player last year, and the NBA was aware of the investigation into Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier. But the NBA is a little different from the feds, as Adam Silver, the commissioner, said. They investigated it and found Rozier not to be guilty because they weren't able to compile as much evidence. But the federal government has the ability to subpoena you. So they have a little bit more power to look at records, look at text messages, etc. So they're able to get down to the truth in a way that the NBA is not able to. So this is an unfortunate thing. It's somewhat of a stain on basketball, the product they're putting on the floor, because if players are sitting, if it's not just Terry Rozier, but other players who don't make as much money are sitting, that's affecting who wins and who loses. That's causing a problem for the product that we watch as fans. We love to see the players play their hearts out, do their best, and give their all, and we just see where the chips lie. It takes away a lot from the game to now not know, well, when are they playing hard? When are they sitting for money? Who's really behind it? Is the mafia paying the other players so much money that the mafia is just actually behind who wins and loses? Because there are many conspiracy theorists who already said that the games are rigged and who wins the championship is already determined by the powers that be. And unfortunately, this is just highlighting that may be a possibility. So as we move forward, I'll just keep you guys up to date. And I've watched a lot of TV. So anybody, if you have a gambling problem, please reach out to the hotline, because we don't want people having gambling addictions and losing money. Yesterday, I ran across a reel from Emily Wilson. She was saying a whole lot of things, and it just kind of took me for a spin. So I want you guys to check this out, and then I'll give you my reaction in a second.
Talk about reparations. We pay reparations. What do you mean you want reparations? Our taxpayer dollars, which are mostly white people paying that, goes to, affordable housing, government programs, EBT, scholarships, DEI, you guys getting jobs. Holy shit. Let's take all that, factor in the theft, factor in the crime, factor it in the murders, and then we'll talk about reparations on this show. How about that? You probably won't like that, will you? Because you're not going to like the numbers. But we are all, frankly, exhausted.
Lord help us. But I'm going to have to address point by point by point of the shit she said. So she's supposed to be talking about reparations, so that's speaking towards black people. So I'll just go through the history of some of the groups who've gotten reparations in America. Jewish people got reparations, Japanese people got reparations. So I don't think it's outside the realm of understanding that black people who were slaves will receive reparations. But we will go through her points because I'm not even a proponent of reparations. I just don't like how she was speaking about black people. Now, for 200 years, black people were slaves. Millions of black people, so over between 10 to 30 million blacks. You have to dig into it. There's varying reports, but between 10 to 30 million black people were enslaved in the transatlantic slave trade when Europeans brought sub-Saharan Africans to America. Now, these black people worked for 200 years of free labor, were not paid. Some people want to be funny, say they got housing, but they didn't have citizenship. They didn't have rights. They didn't have a voice. They were raped. We know they were raped because majority of black people have 25% European DNA. A slave can't choose who they have sex with. And if black people were raping whites while they were slaves, they would have killed them. So there were white people sexually assaulting, I don't want to say sexually assaulting millions of blacks, but sexually assaulting a lot of black people. Now, for those 200 years, we helped with cotton. We helped with infrastructure. We helped build things. We helped the South's economy. We helped the American economy because they would use the things that we were picking and use the crops and things that we were tilling. They would use that for local Southern industry. They would use it for the Northern industry. And they were trading it across the waters to other governments. Now, all of that work that the black people were doing, they were not paid for. So, Emily, are the black people going to get reparations for that work? Are we going to take that into account when we talk about the crime and theft, which I will address later? Then after the 200 years of them being assaulted, of them being beaten, of them working for years and years and years and not being paid, that's what the reparations are for. The reparations are for the work that they did that they weren't paid for. But after those 200 years, there were 100 years of segregation. So let's run the numbers on this because you're talking about tax dollars. Well, black people did pay taxes when they were in Jim Crow in the South. So black people were paying taxes, but though they were paying taxes, they were not given the same treatment as whites who were also paying taxes, but they were given second-class citizenship. So black people couldn't sit at the front of the bus if white people got on. They couldn't use the same libraries. They couldn't use the same water fountains. They were paying for those buses. They were paying for those water fountains. They were paying for those politicians. They were paying for the programs you're talking about, but they could not utilize the programs because the programs went to white people first. Matter of fact, the reason why we have the problem we have right now in inner cities with blacks is because at one point they had poor Jewish people, poor Hispanic people, poor white people, non-Jewish whites, and poor blacks living in the ghetto in cities. What happened was the Democrats, because I tell the truth on both sides, what happened was the Democrats allowed for the white families to keep their father in the home and still receive welfare, and they allowed the fathers to move out to rural America. So what they did is they set up a system where they kept the white family intact, still gave them the government assistance, and moved them outside of the eye of the public. So what happened was the Hispanics and the blacks, who were people of color, started to live, were the predominant face of crime and welfare, because that's what you think. You think black people are the face of welfare. Yet 20 million white people use welfare, food stamps specifically. So 1/10 of the white population uses welfare, double the total amount. I know per capita blacks are using it more, but double the total amount of blacks on welfare or whites on welfare. But for some reason, when you think about welfare, you think about black people. Why? Is it maybe because of what I just told you, that you see poor blacks and you don't see poor whites, so you mistakenly think that welfare is a racial thing when welfare is an economic thing? Let me take a breath, calm my nerves. But on top of the fact that whites use welfare, you also spoke about DEI. So I want you to understand this. Black people are a minority. So in terms of people receiving jobs because of welfare, DEI, yes, it helps black people. Yes, it helps black women because they're black and women. But the group that is the largest beneficiary of DEI is white women, because white women are a larger population than black women and black people total combined. So they are giving benefits to people like you, white women, because of DEI. So you should probably shut your trap talking about, well, blacks are getting jobs because of DEI. So are you, sweetie. Let me take a minute to regroup and breathe. Nah, like I said, guys, it's a lot I want to say. She starts talking about murder. Again, there are 45 million black people, 10,000 commit murder. I still don't understand how she wants to judge all 45 million black people by the 10,000 that commit murder. Does she not understand that you got white people walking around committing mass murders of innocent people? Black people have a gang problem. Black people will rob somebody for a car. Not just blacks, but I understand per capita it's more likely a black will rob you for a car or rob you for your jewels. But these are isolated incidents that are affecting 1-2 people at a time. For the most part, you are not seeing black people go out there and shoot up random 30 people. Just walk in a grocery store, shoot up 40 random people. Stand at the top of a balcony, shoot 50 people. Go try to shoot the president. Go try to shoot Charlie Kirk, etc. So though there's a problem in the black community, it's crazy to me that all of this energy that you spew and send towards blacks, you don't try to hold whites accountable at all. You pretend like there are no whites on welfare, like it's not a problem. Then the problem with you talking about welfare, as I said, is really an economic thing. You don't seem to have a problem with wealthy whites supporting non-wealthy whites supporting non-wealthy whites, but you seem to have a problem with black people using the funds. I don't understand why your issue with welfare wouldn't be, okay, there are a group of people who are paying taxes. There's a group of people who aren't paying taxes. I could better understand your argument if you were saying, I think it's unfair that some people are paying taxes and putting in more than the group using it. The group using it and not using it is not based upon race. It's based upon economics, meaning 75% of black people don't get food stamps, don't get government housing, and don't get any of the benefits of welfare. So how are the black people benefiting from welfare if 75% of blacks do not receive welfare? Please explain that to me. It makes no sense because you make no sense because you are a low racist IQ bitch. Take one more second and let me see if there was any other points that she said in this. She talked about DI. She talked about welfare. She talked about the crime rate. She talked about the... I think I've addressed as much as I want to address on this topic. And I will say this, Emily. I don't have a problem with you criticizing the black community and saying that the black community could do better. I have a problem with you consistently trying to speak about black people as though blacks are the only group committing murder, as if blacks are the only group using welfare, as if blacks are the only group acting ignorant. You can't be blind to the facts of your own people and then expect people to take you serious when you criticize others. That's why when I consistently do this show, I make it a point to discuss that blacks are doing many of the things that you guys say at a higher rate than whites. But the bigger issue is that it's not about race. It's just about the people doing it. So I'll end this on crime. 6% of the black people are committing crime. That is a problem. A smaller percentage of blacks should commit crime. But 3% of whites are committing crime. A smaller percentage of whites should commit crime. So I think the issue is crime, not just black crime. Now, let me take a second, breathe, you guys. There's another clip that my producer pulled up that I haven't seen because he knew that I saw something on Emily earlier, and he kind of knew this might turn into a tangent. So this is a clip. I don't know who it's from. This is from Miss X America, so I'll play it for you guys. But shoot, I see the caption. Not caption, but I see something. 13% of black people. Here we go again. But I'll let it play and see what they're talking about, what she's talking about. Oh, shit. I got to off mute. Here we go again. Okay, she's talking about 13% of blacks. She's saying that 45 million blacks receive 26% of the welfare. That is the 25% of blacks who utilize welfare. The other 75% of blacks do not utilize welfare. Now that's 25% of 13% who's using welfare. In the case of whites, you have 50% of the population. They are 10% of them use welfare, and then that 10% uses 50% of the welfare. So what you have is, again, you have these racist white people trying to connect all the white people to welfare and all the black people to welfare, when really what you have is a small percentage of whites who use welfare and a small percentage of blacks who use welfare. So those people who are against welfare or who want to cut welfare, I understand. This small group of whites maybe needs to rely on welfare a little bit less. This small group of blacks maybe needs to rely on welfare a little bit less. And I think that if Miss America, and ironically, Emily Saves America, if they were true patriots, they would care about helping those who may need a little assistance, because some people who use welfare have jobs and they just don't have the jobs that are high paying. So if they had any sort of heart or any sort of empathy, they would be trying to help those who are on welfare get off, and they wouldn't be against working with the Democrats and the Republicans and the blacks and the whites and the Hispanics and the Asians to find a compromise, right? So if you do have a gripe with the people on welfare, many people say that there are people who have been on welfare for generations. That's a problem. Welfare was designed to help people struggling find jobs to better themselves. So there's nothing wrong with people trying to implement programs. As I've mentioned before, the Republicans have a work policy that they're trying to implement for working age males. I support that. We should definitely have in the black and white community, let's not constantly forget about Appalachia and rural America, where they got people on fentanyl, where they have people being raped, where they have people committing armed robberies, where they have people committing murders. Let's not forget about the people in Appalachia. Those people who have problems in their community, we should go in, we should try to help them, not just giving them money. I agree that just giving people money doesn't fix the problem. We need to find ways to better assimilate them, as Nick Fuentes brings up. Find a way to better assimilate them and have them be productive members in society. So Miss America, Emily Saves America, whenever you guys want to stop being racist, low IQ bitches, the blacks are here and willing to talk to you. Until then, Emily, this is my last thing about her. Until then, Emily, maybe instead of living in Los Angeles or Culver, wherever it is in California where you live, where they have blacks and Hispanics, why don't you move somewhere like Oklahoma, Kentucky, or West Virginia, where it's overwhelmingly white? And how about you let us know about the crime, rape, and welfare in a overly predominantly white area, and let us, the blacks, know how it is. The producer pulled up Nick Fuentes clips. Normally, me and him get into it, so let me just calm guys, because I know there's the stereotype, everybody saying I can't control myself. I most definitely can control myself. I can be composed, but you got to understand, it's so much bullshit coming from white people. They're talking down about my people, and we're exhausted, just like you guys are exhausted with the crime that you're seeing in inner cities, and you're exhausted with the violence you're seeing in inner cities. We're exhausted with the fact that white people who are supposed to be so smart are not even intelligent enough to look at welfare statistics and understand that it's a small group of people in each racist population, so it can't define the race. It's a small group of people committing violent crime in each group's population. You can't use those statistics to talk about the whole race. And the same thing for murder, which is even less prevalent and less frequent. It's a tiny, tiny group of people in both races, so you can't describe any of the races by the murderers. This clip says Tucker apologizes to Nick for calling him gay and says he doesn't understand why no one is getting married. I won't read the quote because I want to react to it for you guys.
So what are the other factors that prevent, I'm sorry I called you gay, by the way, but I'm always, I think I'm just too old or something. I'm like, what? Why isn't anyone married? You tell me, why aren't people married?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the women. The women are extremely liberal. No one talks about that. They're increasingly they do, especially after the last election. There's a 45-point difference between men and women. The men are extremely conservative, increasingly. The women are extremely liberal.
What are they liberal on? What issues? Like, what does that mean, liberal?
Oh, they're very feminist.
Like, actually?
Extremely feminist, yes.
They don't believe that, do they?
I think they do.
Really?
Absolutely,
yes.
How
could you believe that?
I think
gender roles are a construct, that none of this is inborn? Like, you'd have to be an idiot to think that.
They like the idea of it. They like because of course, I think all women naturally want strong men.
Of course, obviously.
They naturally want a Chad. They want like a tall, buff guy. But I think they like the idea of none of them want to work either. None of them actually want to work.
No, that's what I'm saying. Of course. That's right. It's obviously true. It's always been true. Work outside the home.
Right.
They don't have enough work at home. There's a lot to do. But no, I completely agree. So that's why I question, like, they're feminists in what sense?
Yes. And, they like these vague appeals to equality. We want a chance to work and we want respect. And, ultimately, I think the whole political system is just based around women never being accountable for any of their choices. Ultimately, that seems to be that's what abortion is.
Yeah, of course.
As 99% of abortions are elective. So they say it's an unplanned pregnancy. You had sex out of wedlock with someone you didn't intend to have kids with. So now we have to kill the kids in the womb. And, these no-fault divorce laws. These women get married to guys maybe they never intend to stay with. And then when they're out, they're done. And they want child support and they want half the stuff. And I think a lot of men are looking at women and they're very liberal. They're overweight. They have a very high estimation of themselves. I think that people call it hoflation.
Hoflation?
Yes, their sense of their own looks and sexual value is very inflated. And so a lot of people are looking at these like frumpy, obnoxious, loudmouth, liberal women who are also very promiscuous and saying this is not actually appealing at all. And I don't want to start a family with a person
Sounds
like
awful.
this. Yeah, it is.
But if you believe in the patriarchy, as I fervently do, because it's just reality, we didn't choose the system. We were born into a system that is part of nature, can't get out of it. So if you believe that that's true, which it is, then you think that men should lead. And if it's going to be better, men should make it better because that's their job.
Right.
So you don't want to give them a pass, do you? It'd be like, it's all the girls suck. So
I don't even blame it on the women because I think that it's the incentive structures. Women are allowed to do this by the legal system, by kind of social norms. Technology is a big part of it. The attention that is available to women. Women go on Instagram and they get attention from thousands of men. So it's the incentives. But I would say that, because I hear this all the time, people say, well, the men need to step up and be better and lead the women. Easier said than done.
of course, I agree with that.
They're at war with the system, and not even just the system, but also society.
Yep. Okay, so this was a good conversation between Tucker and Nick. I say this a lot, guys, but there's a lot to unpack. So Nick is basically Tucker asked Nick, why is he not married? And then Nick began to blame feminism, liberal ideology, etc. for the reason that the marriage rate is lower and people are having more kids out of wedlock. Okay, so Nick brought up some valid points, but I also think he misrepresented some things. Now, in terms of feminism, I'm a male. There are many things that even with women who claim to be feminists, there are many things from chivalry in the old days that women want to keep. So I don't even, like as Tucker said, he made a joke about how women don't really want to work. They definitely don't want to spend their own money, whether they work or not. So I think that there's some truth to the things that both of them are saying. And what they're saying is that the gender roles are now trying to be presented to society as if men and women are equal and the same. I believe that men and women are equal from the standpoint that we all should be allowed to work and we should all have independence. But inside of the family structure, for most 99% of Americans, we do have the prior system that we've always had for generations and millions and hundreds of thousands of years. I think that what we should have is equal opportunity for everyone. And I think we do have equal opportunity for men and women. And I think the careers people choose speak to what they want out of life. So I noticed in college that a lot of men were pushing more for the science, the business, the type of jobs that allow more income. So when people talk about now how there's an income gap between men and women, I like to point out, well, look, the men are doing jobs that allow them to get paid more than women. So because these men are doing these jobs, they have a higher salary and earn more money than women. So the playing field is fair, but the choices that men are making allow them to have more money. What I also will say, though, is that I I've looked into things like IQ. So you have a higher portion of men who do things like science, math, start businesses, entrepreneurial, etc. So they make more money. And there's a higher percentage of men with IQs over 120 than women, and there's a higher percent per capita, and there's a higher percentage of men with IQs over 140 than women. So those are high IQs, and they allow you to do jobs that bring in a lot of income. On the reverse, though, because people like Nick don't often bring this up, there's a higher percentage of men who commit crimes, and there are a higher percentage of men who have IQs below 80 and below 60 than women. So what you have is a situation where women are in the middle. So some women will get what they want, where they have a man who's earning a lot of income and they can provide more in the traditional role that Nick and Tucker are talking about. But because they have a percentage of women who are smarter than men and who are able to do jobs where you earn more income than men, if you have a level playing field, society will have a situation where there are situations where women make more than men. Now, this becomes a huge problem because in the dating field, what you have is it'll work out for the men who make money. They can just date the women who make less than them. But one thing that Nick alluded to was he said that women have a high self-worth, which is not necessarily bad because I know people talk about women, they judge them on their looks. So I can understand women creating in their mind like this false sense of beauty, because when you put yourself online, when you have a lot of people saying negative things about you, women are emotional, not to go into stereotypes, but it could be a lot on their self-esteem and self-worth if some of the women who are not as attractive are being told things about themselves and it's hard for them to, deal with it. Now, what I'm trying to bring up about the women who are in the middle who make more money than the men who are not as intelligent, so they're doing jobs like, not making fun of people, because I think being productive and having integrity is the key, and I'm about to speak for these men. You might have men who are working in construction. You might have men who are working as janitors. You might have men who are working as correctional officers, etc. These men are working, but they're making less money than some of these women who are working in managerial or executive positions. So one of the problems that I see is that if you have women who claim to be feminists and they want equality, they have to be willing to talk to and date men who make less than them. But most women don't want to do that. So what we do have in a problem societal wise that I do understand what Nick and Tucker are talking about is, if we're going to have the situation that women are wanting, the women are going to have some give and take and not expect the things that they expected from chivalry. Now, another thing that Nick and Tucker are talking about is that they're saying that we have abortions and we have women being promiscuous because of liberal ideology. This is true, but I would like to say that I'm fair to men and women. I don't think that society was better when you had women supposedly not having sex, but women always were having sex. They were just married and cheating on their husbands and no one was finding out about it. I don't think that it's a better society if women are having less sex, but men who are judged by how many sexual partners they have are running around having sex. I would say that we have to be fair to men and women. If we're going to say the women shouldn't have sex, we're going to have to say that the men should also be virgins and not have as much sex. And that's not going to go well for the men. So I just wanted to highlight that double standard. I don't think it's fair. I think the men and women should be judged the same. I don't care if men agree with me. When I'm in the barbershop, majority of the men don't agree with me, but facts are facts. And like you guys know, I try to be objective with everyone. Now, in terms of, he said you can get divorced for no reason. I'll say this. There was a time when women who were working had to have their bank account under their husband. So you had women working, but they couldn't even create their own bank accounts. They had to either be with their father or their husband. And this was way into the 1970s. I think it's unfair that you have a working adult who can't start their own bank account. I think it was wrong that they had a time when men were beating women, but the women couldn't leave and get out of the abusive situation because the government wouldn't allow them to do anything without the signature of their husband. So to me, this is how things go. There's a pendulum shift. There was a huge shift in women's rights because women weren't being able to control certain things with their body. They weren't being able to control their bank accounts, etc., because the society was too patriarchal. Now, some may say now the society is a little bit too feminist because you're allowing women to, once they have a baby, they're guaranteed money from the government or they're guaranteed money from their partner. So just like poor people can abuse the welfare state, women can also be mischievous and up to no good and misuse the current system that's kind of protective of women. So I would agree that as a society, we need to just be, as I ask people in the political world to be fair to Democrats and Republicans, I think in terms of genders, we need to start being fair to the marriage structure and the home structure. Anybody with common sense would know if you have two parents in the household, that is going to fare better for everyone. It allows the men and women to have support in raising the children. It allows the children to have a better economic situation, and it allows people to save. Because if a man has a house and a woman has a house and they're separate, and the man has to pay for his house and he has to pay for the woman's house because she needs child support, it's not allowing that man to save and have the best financial situation he can have. So there's a lot of truth that comes out of the things that the conservatives say in terms of they're trying to push marriage, they're trying to push two-parent households. These things would help society, period. My only statement is that it's okay when there's a single mother. It's okay when there's a broken home because it depends on that particular family. We must also remember that when we had black men in the homes, Black men were still committing higher rate of violent crime than white men, even those of who had 2-parent households, because everything is not based upon just your race. It's not based upon just your socioeconomics. It's not just based upon your marital status. It's not just based upon your religion. It's not just based upon your morals. All of these things work in conjunction with one another. So I believe that when someone says something like Nick or Tucker that could be helpful, we should take it, but we should also not take it completely at face value, because when we don't think critically, we go into these beliefs that there's only one way, there's only one correct answer, and that's just not true. To each his own, but we should all at least look at the data and consider the points that Tucker and Nick are making that make sense and that are valid. There's a couple more clips from Nick that I'll check out for you guys. Oh, and I don't see myself as a feminist, but I do, again, support like women having the same rights and same equal opportunity as men. So that the viewers know my stance on this. This is also, I think all of these clips are going to be from this interview that Nick did with Tucker Carlson. So if you guys haven't checked it out, check it out. I don't even know who's page. It's on Tucker's page because it says his logo's at the bottom. Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson say pornography is not just this is going to be funny, right, too. Pornography is not just sabotaging normal sexual relations. It's making people gay and trans. Jesus Christ. It is making people gay and trans. I got to read this again, guys. Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, both, I guess they're in agreement, say pornography is not just sabotaging normal sexual relations, it's making people gay and trans. This is why I haven't watched it yet, but somebody's saying some stupid shit like this. This is why people may say they're lunatics.
And so something that is almost never talked about is that this is a generation that's totally sexually dysfunctional, I think, because of pornography. And some people are able to cope with it. Some people don't have a problem. But I think a lot of people, and maybe even a small minority, have a serious problem with it. And
how does it make people sexually dysfunctional?
I think that it's impossible for a real woman to compete with the availability and the novelty of pornography. A real woman, like without getting graphic, she's only one person, and maybe she wants to do something sexual, maybe she doesn't. Porn is, you could have 100 different women in one sitting doing anything, that whatever niche or idiosyncratic thing a person might be into, it's there. And so I think that novelty combined with that availability, it makes it so that, when you think about courting a woman, juice isn't worth the squeeze. And so there's like also a problem of like erectile dysfunction, people that can't enjoy regular sex because it does not compare to the intensity, the novelty, and the availability of porn. It's hyper stimulation. And so I think that's sabotaging a lot of normal sexual relationships.
It seems like it's making a lot of people gay too.
Yeah, and trans.
You think that's true?
100%.
What is that?
I think that the novelty is a huge part of that. I think that if you are somebody that uses pornography multiple times per day, which many people do.
Actually?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a lot of jerking off.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And, if you're doing that multiple times a day, every day, for years, since you're a kid, well, eventually you get bored.
Yeah.
And you want to move on to something more extreme. And you're kind of, it operates, I think, similar to like a drug. You kind of have the same kind of resistance to it that you would to a drug, or a tolerance for it. And you're always chasing that initial feeling the first time you used it, or the first time you saw a certain thing. And I think eventually you just chase more taboo, more transgressive. And I think maybe some people are more prone to that than other people, going in a really extreme direction.
Is how Charlie Sheen got AIDS, actually.
Yeah.
Through just being jaded and looking for something more transgressive. That's just a fact.
And there's something too about what it does when you look at it. Because people don't realize that it is a fundamentally different experience being involved in intercourse versus watching other people have intercourse. And I think that actually does something to you.
Tell me, what do you mean?
I think that, for example, I think Steve Saylor has written about this, that there's multiple kinds of transsexuals. And he says that one kind of transsexual is somebody that likes the idea of seeing themselves as a woman, is autogynephilia.
Yes.
And I think that, one of the theories for that is you watch a man having sex with a woman that isn't you so much, you kind of achieve an identity with the woman in like a weird, sick way. You almost identify with the woman. And so there's weird things that happen when you're watching that and having such strong emotional and sexual experiences with it.
Before I respond to any of this, I gotta say this. Both these niggas sound gay. But I'll say this. There were some points that they brought up. I can understand pornography can be like drinking. It can be like a drug. Sex can be like a drug, right? I understand that too much pornography can be affecting people's minds. It could be affecting people, children. It could be causing men and women to not be able to have productive and sufficient love lives and long-lasting romantic relationships because they're just attracted to and trying to get a high that they got, as they say, from jerking off, but just from watching porn, etc. He also highlighted that porn and sex are different, but what I kind of chuckled and didn't understand was he's saying that people would rather watch porn than have sex. I mean, I've watched porn, I've had sex. I mean, sex is better than porn. I don't understand. Maybe it's because I don't have a pornography problem. Like some of the stuff they were saying was just kind of out there to me, but maybe that everybody's different. Maybe it's affecting different people differently. And I think Nick did say that some people can handle porn, some can't. But you could say that about sex. I mean, as we all familiar with, Tiger Woods supposedly had they say he had a sex problem. I feel like he just wanted to be a single man and have sex with women. I don't necessarily call that a problem. It was just the fact he was married. You shouldn't be married and having sex with women outside of your marriage. But they have people supposedly who have sex addictions. And some people probably do. And what they do, instead of watching porn, they're having sex with many different people, or they're having sex multiple times a day, and that can either cause a problem in their marriage or it can just cause a problem in their work. So just like pornography can be a problem, sexuality, not sexuality, but having sex can be a problem. Shoot, when I talk about the Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians, you have people who just become extreme in their religious beliefs. So I think that can be a problem. You got people who drink too much coffee, caffeine, that can be a problem. Obviously, you got people get addicted to cocaine and marijuana and then drinking. You have alcoholics, but you have people who only take a couple drinks. So yes, everybody is different, and that's kind of why I'm not a liberal, but that's why I understand like some of the things liberals are saying. It's like there's a diverse group of people, so we have to be open to the fact that there are different ways people live and there are different problems, different things people can do, and different problems that people need assistance with. But this what I said about liberals also speaks to conservatives, right? There are conservative people who see things in a way, whether it's marriage or religion, etc., and that way works for them, and that allows them to be a productive member in society. So what I try to do is people don't like it. They say I'm not picking a side. They say I'm scared to be controversial, which obviously I'm not, because I say things all the time that all the groups disagree with. But I do think that there should be room for the Nick Fuentes on the major platforms in the public, in the mainstream discourse, right? And there's already room for Tucker. Though it was a little weird hearing these guys talk about this, it should be okay for people to talk about like sexual things and for people to just consider different perspectives. So obviously people are okay with porn. They're promoting, it's not just okay with porn, but they're promoting sexuality with women, young teens, etc., just on TV and through music, because Stu Peters talks about the rap music. Through music, through entertainment, there's a lot of sexuality put on the children. It may be too much. Maybe parents, as I think good parents already do, watch what their children see. So, I mean, obviously, if you have to watch what the kids are seeing, there's some truth in what they're saying. You don't want the kids and you don't want people coming across too much porn, too much sexuality. But on the reverse end, we're not going to live in like an old 1800s, 1600s state where people aren't watching, sexual things. Regardless if anyone reads the Bible, regardless of people watching porn, men are attracted to women, women are attracted to men. People have curiosities. So even if people don't watch porn, they're going to think about sexual things, have desires, have feelings and impulses towards those desires. So in a way, Nick is talking about a whole lot of bullshit. He's basically trying to blame porn for what existed before porn. I'm not going to say before porn existed, but before porn was like mainstream or transmitted across the internet and transmitted across television. People knew what sex was. It turned on men and women. So they thought about these things that Nick is now saying people watching porn. So there was some truth to it, some untruth in my opinion. And I'll go on to the last clip. And just after talking about this, guys, these two men, I just have to say it again for my black homies. Pause. This is the last Nick. This account is Fuentes Updates. This is how we've been finding a lot of the clips. So if you're interested in stuff with Nick, I mean, you can follow him on X, even though that nigga blocked me. You can follow him on X, and you can follow the Fuentes Updates. I don't beef with people. Emily blocked me. Why you guys think? Because I was hitting her with them fucking facts, and she didn't have no response. But yeah, I'm going to play this clip, and it says Nick Fuentes tells Tucker Carlson what he said to Trump during the infamous dinner.
I said, I think you're one of the greatest living Americans. I said, I'm a young guy. I said, I really have nothing to say other than thank you. I have nothing but gratitude for what you've done for the country. I said, it's really not my place, to give you advice or correct you. And he said, no, don't be bashful. Tell me. And the story that I brought up was, this was really what sent me. In the first Fox News debate in 2015, in the Republican primary,
Yes.
Bret Baier, the first question said, raise your hand if you will not pledge to support the eventual nominee.
Yes.
And Trump raised his hand because that's what he was saying. He said, if I don't win, I'll run independent and I'll make Republicans lose. And so I brought that up and I told that story and I said, I feel like what was inspiring in 2016 is that you were willing to let the Republican establishment lose. Like you were serious about blowing them up, such that you are not going to say, like Pat Buchanan, who I respect, but Sam Francis acknowledged that was one of his great mistakes, was ultimately endorsing Bush. I said, it showed you were serious, you were playing to win, because you said, I will let this Republican Party crash and burn. I want to run as the Republican, but if I can't, I'll run independent. I said, and that's how I knew you were serious. And that's how I knew you were the guy. I said, and I feel like lately, this was right after Ronna McDaniel became the head of the RNC again. I was like, I feel like lately you're just behind all these people. I said, we're not here for Kevin McCarthy. We're not here for Ronna McDaniel or Mitch McConnell. I said, we are here for you. Like we will die for you. We are loyal to you. I said, and when you did that, that showed you could win, and we rallied. I said, so I want to see more like that. I want to see you hit DeSantis, let's say, who was running against him. And he was like, oh, okay. He goes, oh, so you like that? It was right after he called them DeSanctimonious.
Yeah.
I said, that was awesome. You should have kept hitting him. He's like, oh, you like that? He goes, this guy's hardcore. I like this guy, he was saying about me. And so I was trying to just get his mojo back, and, gas him up a little bit. And so that's how it went between me and him.
And what was Ye saying at this point?
Well, he was beaming with pride because Trump turns to him and says, who is this guy? This guy's great. And Ye was like, right? And I was like, this is amazing.
Did you call your parents from the parking lot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You'll never believe me. Yeah.
So Nick is outright, he's extremely conservative. So I understand where Nick is coming from. Trump came out more so fighting for the working man, but really the working class white man who was supposedly forgotten. And he was fighting for the American people. And when he got in politics, he was talking about draining the swamp, creating a new government, and representing the people. So he got in office the first time, and then he lost the election and came back and then won his re-election for his second term. In the third election he ran for. And many people are saying that Trump has changed. He's changed in a few ways. He doesn't have Steve Bannon. He brought some of the people back, like Stephen Miller from the first administration. But Trump is not as he's still controversial, but he's not as America first as he used to be. In some ways, he's pushing some of Israel's foreign agenda more. He's also pushing stuff with Qatar. He's also been more willing to speak to blacks and other groups. So there's like good and bad in this. Obviously, as an American citizen, I think that him pushing whether it's Israel or Qatar is a bad thing, because I think as an American president, he should be trying to push America first. And he is trying to do that with his tariffs and fighting against China with the technological advances they're making and other economic disputes we're having with the Chinese. So he is trying to put America first, but he hasn't been as strong because he's also been operating on the world stage and trying to stop multiple wars. So he's trying to kind of be he's trying to be a politician. He's trying to work with the Muslims and work with the Israelis. He's trying to work with Russia, which he's seeing is not working, but also be strong for America. So I think that as he's gotten more into politics, he's become more of a politician. So he started out as an outsider because he wasn't a part of the system. And now 12 years later, he has bigger donors. He has more access and more friends in some of these political spheres. So I think that he's just himself evolved from being an outside fighter. He still speaks his mind. He still says what he thinks. He still has a lot of the characteristics that made him popular with his base and then popular amongst the American citizens because he won the popular vote before and he also won the Electoral College. So he came in kind of with a conservative base, but tried to go mainstream and got a diverse following. Then when he became president, black people saw that everything that they said he was going to do, he didn't do. Hispanics saw that everything they said he was going to do, he didn't do. That's why Hispanic males voted for Trump in the last election. That's why more black men voted for Trump last election. Like when you put yourself in front of the American people, no matter what the media says, no matter what TikTok says and other social media platforms, we see who people are. So I'll say this about Trump. I'm not the biggest fan of Trump, but he is who he says he is. And what you see is what you get with him. And that's kind of how it is with me. So again, I go back to Lily and Jake and some of these people that I disagree with, but I disagree with Mark Lamont. I disagree with Bakari Sellers and Mark Lamont. He has a podcast and he's on CNN. He's a liberal, and Bakari's on CNN too. He has a show called he hosts a podcast called Native Land, so you guys should check that out. He's more of like a moderate black Democrat. But my point of saying is I'm able to get along with this group of people because it's not just about agreeing with people, as you guys know. For me, it's just about the respect. I feel more comfortable talking to somebody like Jake, who just lets you know what he thinks about the Jews and the blacks, as opposed to like a Ted Cruz, right? Ted Cruz will tell you one thing, and then 2 years later, he's saying something else. And it's not because he changed his policies or he changed his opinion. He's just doing whatever the person who gives him money is saying, or at least it seems that way to me, right? A lot of these guys, they're politicians and they run on a platform, but really they're just running on what's current at the time. So a person like Bernie Sanders, a person like AOC, though they may be too liberal for me, I would say they're consistent. Bernie's always for the working people. He's always trying to lower the taxes on the poor. He's trying to raise it on the rich, who PBD, Patrick Bet-David, says is already paying a higher percentage of taxes. So some of the things Bernie may say or may want to do, I don't agree with, but he's consistent. Same with AOC. They're constantly trying to push their agenda. So though I disagree with the extremes, what I will say is that they're being honest, at times. And I gotta grab my phone, guys, because the comments are not on my phone, the laptop this time. It's a few that I came across. I woke up in the middle of the night, guys, and I saw a few comments. People responded to the video that I did about Joy Reid and JD Vance. So they edited this. It says edited, so I don't know if they changed it. But this is Michael Waniger 31. And I can't see the rest of your name, bro, because it's on the phone. Sorry. Shit, this says I'm wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong about something. They had to able to the work. I mean, this doesn't even seem that you're wrong. They had to be able to do the work. So you're saying I'm wrong, but you have some grammatical errors. It's fine. They lowered the standards so these DEI students could pass. Okay, I think this is about Michelle Obama and Joy Reid. Joy Reid got into a lot of schools, so I don't know if they lowered the standards to all those schools. Plus, I'll tell you about her scores again. But in the fact they have lowered the standards so that these Ivy League schools, companies are refusing to hire them. You don't suddenly become smarter just because they made you a DEI student. Then you got this laughing emoji. So we're going to deal with all this. I have already said that DEI lowers the standards for whites, Hispanics, and blacks. So Asians who go to Harvard and Ivy League schools have to have a 1,500 on the SAT or a 3,500 on the ACT. Their IQ basically has to be 150. Whites only have to have a 1,500, so that's a lower standard, or 34 on the ACT, and their IQ needs to be around 145. So as you can see, the average Asian is smarter than the average white at Ivy League schools. For Hispanics, it's even lower. The IQ is about 135, and for blacks, it's even lower. It's about 130. So I do believe that they're letting in a less intelligent blacks, Hispanics, and whites to Ivy League schools. And I do believe that is why no matter where you go to school, you see an overrepresentation of Jewish people and Asians at Ivy League schools, and you see an overrepresentation of Jewish people and Asians innovating in medicine and business, etc., because those groups are performing higher on cognitive tests than non-Jewish whites, Hispanics, and blacks. So the statement that you're saying and trying to imply is about blacks. 99% of the time when people talk about DEI, they mean black people. These things are true about blacks, Hispanics, and whites. All right. Hey, guys, we had some technical difficulties, but we worked it out. Cutting the comments short. You guys know I love the comments. Please keep commenting and share with your friends if you don't already do so. The podcast and the various clips that you guys see. This is from Mooney Jr. 76. Blacks hate America. Let me finish reading it. They have been screaming it for 70 years, along with how much they hate white people. Jesus Christ. Your FOS, he must be cussing, full of shit, okay? The only Americans I respect are the ones who sacrifice for this nation. Jesus Christ. The leeches and the benefactors are not American and should get off the back, go the F back where they came from. Jesus, it's just so much stupidity sometimes with these comments. I'm sorry, bro, but you're just retarded. And yes, we say retarded in this house. So blacks don't hate America, but at a time, blacks were second-class citizens, so they have an issue with how America used to be, but we're okay with how America is for the most part, except for the racism that we see that white spew. We go against that. We've been screaming it for 70 years because for hundreds of years we experienced this discrimination and slavery, etc. I'm definitely not full of shit. I'm a straight shooter, like Stephen A. Smith's podcast. The only Americans I respect are those who sacrifice. Well, black people died on the battlefield in the Civil War. They also died on the battlefield in World War I and World War II. Emily Wilson, do the black people who died during World War I and II get any account or any money of reparations for the dying on the battlefield? The leeches and benefactors are not American. I don't know who the leeches and benefactors are. I guess you're talking about welfare. That has nothing to do with blacks. That's just low-income people. And I'll give one more comment, but people who use, some of the people who use welfare are hardworking Americans. So we've got to consistently remind people that in a society where you have lower class, middle class, and upper class, you are going to have people who work because of how capitalism works, who are going to work and not have enough money to have, some of the benefits and the things that they need, because you have to underpay people in the lower class so that the wealthy can exploit, whether it's lower class Americans or exploit people in third world countries. Capitalism is built off exploitation. So the only way you can have people who are doing very well is to be using resources, whether it's those people's energy, their time, their physical labor, or you're using the land of another country that has resources like Africa. The only way we can have this capitalist society is to exploit people. So what I need Americans to stop doing is stop talking so bad about the third world, stop talking so bad about Africa, stop talking so bad about low-income people. These same people that y'all keep saying are leeches are also cleaning, doing the hard work and the manual labor for you to have the products that you have. Without Africa, we wouldn't have these cell phones, we wouldn't have these computers, because the cobalt that we're using for all this technology comes from Africa. So for whatever reason, European people weren't able to cultivate those resources, and they don't have those resources. So they need Africa, and they need the Africans to pick the cobalt, pull the cobalt, mine the cobalt, and they need the black labor, and they need the resources. So as I always try to say, we need to work together. I don't want the people who are using welfare to be rude, disrespectful. I don't want them to steal. These are all problems, and they should be addressed. The only problem that I have is that we call people leeches and we call people welfare users and abusers, and everybody who uses these programs does not fit into that category. So we just need to be nuanced in how we talk about these people. I think I finished with there. Oh, somebody said go back where you come from. Well, if you're not Native American, which means if you're not from East Asia, you shouldn't be telling anybody to go back where they came from. Because if you're white or black, you could take your white ass back to Europe, and you could take your black ass back to Sub-Saharan Africa. Got one more quote for you guys. Not quote, one more comment. It's from LDLX7ET. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence. You could never insult my intelligence, whoever you are. But it's very obvious that the U.S. was based on European values. How is it obvious if in Europe they ran away from a monarchy because they didn't have a republic-style government, but they came to America where they had Iroquois Indians who had a republic-style government where the various tribes got together and met and had a republic to decide how they were gonna work on their disputes in a diplomatic fashion. So you're trying to credit America's government with white people, but yet nowhere in Europe at the time that the Americans came did they have this form of government. They only had it in America where the Native Americans had this form of government. But I'll digress. That's why it's an issue if other people flood the country with non-European cultures. It dilutes the real America. Again, the problem is you're trying to say that the real America is white people and that the real America is the good things that whites brought, but there were good things from other cultures that those cultures brought into America. So I just disagree with the fundamental statement that the problem is diverse people are coming. Whites have gained a lot from the Aborigines, the Sub-Saharan Africans, the East Asians, etc. So, and just as Sub-Saharan Africans have benefited greatly from Europeans in terms of farming, in terms of agriculture, in terms of technology. We all benefit. You don't hear me standing up here acting like Dr. Umar talking about blacks are great, whites come from blacks, and it would be better if whites didn't exist. That's bullshit. White people have done great things. Asian people have done great things, and you hardly even hear about it. All you hear whites and blacks in America talk about is whites and blacks. If it's really about humanity and civilization, praise the Asians. Give the Asians their just due for all that they bring, the innovation, etc., intelligence that they have. So I just responded to something earlier about intelligence, but I just want to make it clear. The Asians are out here working their butts off, and the Asians are the ones moving society forward right now with math, science, etc., medicine. The Japanese, they're doing so much with blood transfusions. They're doing so much, China, etc., with HIV, AIDS, and vaccines, etc. I just think we need to highlight what the Asians do a lot more in this country, because people call them the model minority, but they're really the model citizen. And the Indians as well. These people put in a lot of work. They make a lot of dollars. They help their people back at home, and they help Americans. And it's just sad that they don't get more credit for what they do. Shout out Lauren Chen. She's one of my Asian friends on X. Not saying that she does a lot, but you guys get what I'm saying. That was the last comment for today, because he told me to cut it short. So I did 3 comments for you guys. Next episode, I'll try to run through some more. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the feedback. If you like this episode, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. And tell your friends, share it. We want more people to come into the discussion. It seems like there's like a community growing. We got people talking to people in the comments. As you guys see, I listen to your guys' views and I share my thoughts. And as you're seeing with Erica Kirk, I actually did something looking into her family because people were interested in it. So then I checked it out and became interested myself. So now we have some more content coming about Erica and her ties to Israel and her ties to entrepreneurship, etc. So peace. Talk to you guys later. Wah. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why do you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes going to talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about their 2 genders. I sat next to her hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch. Baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog. She FaceTime, but I